Land. We are live once again after our Memorial May. It was a very successful Memorial May, all things considered. There was a lot of good things that happened this year. There were some challenges, but as always, as Americans, we improvise, we adapt, we overcome. And our organization was not any different. And welcoming everyone back to our very first live Lessons from the Front since the Memorial May timeframe. And I am happy and very pleased to present a great American hero, a gentleman that has received the highest medal that you can receive in the, well, I started to say United States Marine Corps, but that's just me being a little biased, Doc. And that would be the Medal of Honor. Our guest is Don Ballard, AKA Doc. But you know, before I even go there, sir, do you prefer Doc, do you prefer Don, or do you prefer Colonel?
It depends on the audience, but I love Doc. I'm here to be Doc tonight. I'm not getting paid to be a colonel, so I just love to be Doc.
Well, we are absolutely honored to have you. So thank you for giving us the time.
I'm okay. I got the light on and everything. You can see me okay?
Yes, sir. You look fantastic.
Oh, now I know you're lying.
Well, I try not to do that, but so you were telling me a minute ago that the minute you and I came on video together, you looked behind me and you said, "Hey, that's an old Ike jacket." Did you have one of those back when you served?
I did not ever wear one, but I have one hanging in my basement now, waiting for my museum to get built so I can put it in there. Yeah, I love that old jacket. It wouldn't fit me today, even if I could wear it, but I'm not authorized.
Well, yeah, and this one belonged to my mother-in-law's father, who served with the 3rd Infantry Division at the Battle of the Bulge. So he was on the southern, or he was south of Bastogne, and guarding Patton's right flank as Patton's 3rd Army made the push north into Bastogne. So very, very interesting. That jacket saw some stories.
Likewise, that's what I love about military history. You know, just take the time to learn it. It's very, very interesting.
Well, Doc, one of the things that we really like to do on this is, you know, before we jump into an impressionable moment from your time in service, we really like to put that in context and find out a little bit about Doc Ballard before he was Doc.
Okay. But first of all, I want to thank you for your efforts and what you're doing and preserving history, educating, inspiring. All these stories go untold. And if it wasn't for you and other organizations, we would be kept in the dark and we wouldn't know any more than what, we were taught in school, which was nothing. So I'm very impressed with your program and I'm glad to be here and support you.
Well, thank you. That means the world. Thank you very much.
To answer your question, you know, I grew up in a family. I was a baby boomer, so I grew up in a family of military men. All of them served that were capable. And, when I was raised by veterans. And I've always had this understanding that it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a veteran to raise a patriot. So I'd like to coin that phrase for you to use if you'd like to, but I think it's so important that our veterans step up and do what they did for me, and that was to teach me that living in this country is not free. There's nothing free, and you better look at it twice if somebody's giving it to you free in the first place. So I was taught that if you enjoy this country or anything in life, if you enjoy something in life, protect it. Yes, you're there to benefit from it, but don't consume all of it. Save some for other people and give back and help others prosper and do the right thing for the right reason. And our freedom will remain, and our love for this country will stay steadfast. And we will be able to conquer any of the challenges that this country faces. So I was raised with that kind of an attitude that I better serve some way. If it wasn't in the military, I better serve in the Peace Corps. I better take care of the community. I better get involved. I've been a community supporter all my life, and I've been a veteran supporter ever since I retired out of the military. So I
So
don't think
talk a little bit about your home front. You said that you came from a family of veterans and a family of service. So talk a little bit about those that went before you from a service standpoint.
Well, most of them were drafted during the Second World War.
Mhm.
Uh, my closest relatives that lived with us was my mother's brother, my uncle. He volunteered. He joined the Navy, and then my own father was in the Navy, and several other. My grandfather had been in the Navy. We were a Navy family, but
Mhm.
then my grandfather went to work for the railroad, and he was actually drafted during the Second World War into the Army, and served another duration with the Army as a hoghead, driving the trains in Europe.
Oh, really? In Europe?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And so he actually was in Germany driving trains and throughout, the front, what they would call the front, depending on different battles. But so all of them saw activity, and they all saw and dealt with the enemy. They all saw the atrocities that the enemy was doing on their own people and the people that they captured and the Americans. There was a lot of bitterness and towards the Japanese and the Germans when I grew up because of the way they treated our captives, our POWs.
So I'm sure there were some pretty powerful lessons that your father, your uncle, your grandfather taught you. Does one of those lessons come to mind when you think of them?
For sure. They would always hand me a hypothetical straw and say, suck it up. No matter no matter what challenges you would have, they would say, when I was your age, I was killing people, or I was defending this country. What the hell are you doing? What are you talking about? You
Oh
know,
my gosh.
yeah. And it was, I loved the strictness. Back then, I didn't care for it. But today I look back and I realize that I'm a product of my environment, as all of us are.
Yes.
So if we're allowed to skate and do nothing and earn all these accolades for nothing, we'll be entitlement people the rest of our life. We have everything will be for us for free. Then we'll want it free the rest of our life. No one wants to put any more effort than they have to, and that's why we get into trouble. Is that we're not here to better ourselves. In any other way than to take what we can grab.
Sure.
What's in it for me attitude, And I was never raised that way. I was always raised with community involvement, giving back to the community, helping people, helping, the people that needed help. So that's kind of my background. And
So
so
it
there's a
was kind
lot
of
of
a
example. I was going to say this, to specifically answer your question. That was the common thread was that it takes a team to do anything on any level. And if you want to be an individual all your life and struggle without help, then that's your choice. Life's about choices. But if you make choices that are beneficial to the people around you, and they're going to reciprocate and help you, So I never wanted to be a loner.
So it was a foregone conclusion that you were going to serve in the military, is what it sounds like. And if I remember correctly, you enlisted. You were not drafted. You enlisted in '65. Is that correct?
I ran out of tuition money, and I was going to college. I wanted to be a pre-med dentist, orthodontist, and so I ran out of tuition money. So my personal dentist at the time was an Army reservist, and he, through the years, was trying to get me involved in the military, but he didn't need to because I was already, indoctrinated. But he had a brag wall, kind of like your coat, and photos, and his brag wall in his office was as a diversion because he kept people waiting and in pain when they were being shot with the Novocaine and stuff. And I go out there and read all of his accolades and his contributions and his collections, and I fell in love with it. So I was raised to think that way. But I actually, his words to me that I'll never forget was, join the military. They'll help educate you. They'll pay your education. You pay back 2 years for every 1 year of college. And, it's a great way of earning a degree and a great way of learning on-the-job skills. And it's a great way to serve your country at the same time. So that's initially, I joined to be a Navy dentist. But they didn't need a dentist at the time. They needed corpsman, and they pronounced it corpsman. So I went to my first.
Did they really? That's how they pronounced it at that time.
The black guy that was my leader, at the time, he was my first class petty officer that was running our outfit, pronounced it as a corpsman. So I literally went to corps school thinking I was going to be an undertaker.
Well, and I mean, I'm laughing, but at the same time, there's an element of truth as things went on that you did see some of that. So,
well, I should have listened to him because I'm a funeral director today, so I guess I am a corpsman.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a licensed funeral director and own 2 funeral homes and 2 cemeteries. So he was right. I should have listened to him, 7 years ago.
Yeah, so maybe you thought he was pronouncing it wrong, and he was pronouncing it right the whole time.
Well, he had that crystal ball that I didn't have,
So you end up as a Navy corpsman, and obviously serving with the Marine Corps, based on the story that we know about you. You obviously saw a lot. I mean, you experienced a lot. You've told your story about receiving the Medal of Honor, and you've been very, very humble about that. But is there another story, or maybe that's the one that taught you the biggest lesson that you took away from your time in service? I'm always curious to hear what people walked away from their service, that lesson that they pass on to others. What would that be?
Well, I think the message is in part that the military family is an organization that is never duplicated on the outside. There's a close bonding, there's a love. I didn't understand what the definition of love was until I actually got into combat, and I had people trying to protect me, trying to keep me alive. And they were only doing it because they loved me. Marines take care of their docs, right?
Oh, yes.
So I didn't go over there to kill anybody. I'm a corpsman. I if you need me, call me. I was the last guy to get any information on a need-to-know basis. They didn't consider me as part of the planning. I was the aftermath. I was always corpsman up. It's the Marine Corps battle cry.
Yes.
And,
yes, it is.
My job was to save the lives and get them home to the best I could to their families, and while I'm on that subject, I want to thank the Vietnam vets, because we have today in your hometown and mine, we have the EMS, we have the paramedics, we have the first responders that did not exist prior to Vietnam. And all that training was developed during Vietnam. The advent of the helicopter with life flight, didn't have that. We didn't have ambulances. We didn't have airway management. It was always, when I was on the fire department before I went into the service as a volunteer, I got paid a little, but we were first responders, but they called us, I forgot what they called us now, first aid men, that's what they called us.
Okay.
And we went up with a panel truck or a station wagon and picked the bodies up or picked the people up off the highways and, took them to the hospital so they could die up there or get treated. In Vietnam, we didn't have that luxury of ambulances. We had to wait for the birds to fly. So the whole dynamics of the medical treatment base changed to stabilization before transportation. That meant we had to keep them alive, not knowing when we were going to be able to get them out.
Is that right? So prior to the Vietnam era,
Correct.
We did not have EMTs the way we know them today.
That's correct. I was one of the first ones when I came home to sign up to take the course.
I'll be darned, I didn't know that.
Yep, they didn't exist. They had some private ambulances were just starting up that were civilian owned. We had none of them in the municipalities. So it was, and the ones that they were seeking out for trainers and for advice were Vietnam vets that yourself that when you're in combat, you're going to see the worst of the worst, and you're better apt to handle more tragedies on the streets of Kansas City, for instance, because of my experiences in Vietnam. So I loved it. I retired off the fire department as a paramedic and EMT and as a captain firefighter. So I've always been a public servant, but I always hang my hat on the training that I received and the experience that and the love that I received while I was in Vietnam.
So you've mentioned the love that you received in Vietnam a couple of times. You mentioned the love of brotherhood, and while I certainly can't argue that because I experienced some of that too, is there a story that sticks out from your time that really that really showed that love that you can tell us about to try and display the difference in what we think love is and what the love that you're talking about is in the battle?
Well, love is a word that we just throw out loosely. I don't know that any of us understand what it really means. It came to my realization when I saw people that were risking their life to help me. And actually, some of them gave up their life. They actually got shot and killed trying to get to me to help get to another Marine, and they could have stayed where they were. I didn't call them and ask for help. That's another part of love, is that you anticipate the needs and you go to help people and find out if they need the help first, but then certainly be available for them. And so we lost 71% of our battalion in Tet Offensive of 1968.
71% of the battalion.
Yep. That came out in our journal. I learned that at our last reunion of our troops, our unit, because it was classified up until it was just declassified. So we had no knowledge because they were bringing more in. We were on the DMZ, so everything came through us to go south. And they were grained in, they were dug into the hills over there. We found a complete hospital underground, was buried. I'm getting off the subject here, but the point.
No, please. This is people want to hear these things because, okay. and I'm going to preface everything else you're saying with this. We understand that Vietnam veterans were not welcomed home. Y'all were not welcomed home the way we are now, and you weren't welcomed home with the parades after World War II. And that's because everything was unpopular. We know that. But there is a lot of movement in our society, I think, to hear these stories now. We want y'all to tell these stories. So please take it where you want to go.
Well, you're 100% accurate because of the sheeple. When we got off the planes and came home, we were met by protesters, just like the protesters we have today. They don't know what the hell they're protesting. They're just protesting because they don't want to be drafted. They think if they get the politicians to do away with the draft, and they finally did. I couldn't believe what it did. They got away with getting rid of the draft, and that's the worst thing that happened to this country.
Yeah, I just watched something on that the other day, and I didn't understand. I didn't realize all the politics behind that originally.
Yeah, it was pressure from the public protesters, because they didn't want to go. And stop and think of all the college educators. The only deferment back then was you had to be in college, and you had I know lifetime college students, that got 4 or 5, 6 degrees and became teachers and then lecturers and professors, and they were conscientious objectors, and they didn't want to go fight. And they didn't want to fear the price of being killed. Of course, none of us did, but they're the same ones that teach our kids today their core values. And believe me, I don't appreciate their core values. So I don't give a damn about the colleges, even though I went myself. I had to answer the question based on what the instructor was wanting the answers. Not the real answers, not
what was in your heart.
Not was real answers. It's you want to pass the test or you want to have your 2 cents, and so I learned to keep my mouth shut most of the time. And, I was able to pass the class.
So you started talking a little bit about the that love again that you experienced, and you mentioned there were a couple of guys that gave their life for you. Because, and I loved what you said about it's about anticipating needs. And I mean, that I can tell you that's the nugget that I'm taking away from today, that love is the ability to anticipate someone else's needs. And can you talk about that a little bit more though? Like specifically what happened that one of these Marines got up to come protect you? Why were you in danger? How are you in danger there?
Well, in the Marine Corps, the corpsman is just part of the team until somebody gets wounded. And when the shots come out, you hear the shot, you drop to the ground, and if everything's okay, we're feeling good, But then that battle cry comes out, corpsman up, somebody was wounded. They're laying there waiting for us, and it's like a moving target. They shoot us. Okay, now what's wrong with this? Well, I'll tell you, because obviously the enemy knew where that guy was because he got shot. Most of our corpsmen got killed going to a person that had already been shot, because the gunman was waiting for other people to come. They knew that Americans weren't going to just let somebody lay there like they do. They don't have the same love for their people as we do ours. My only job was to save their life. So I can't lay back there in the back and say, well, it's not safe. So a corpsman had to get up. We ran up there. We did what we had to do. I didn't think about getting shot or killed. But believe me, I was afraid. I was afraid most of the time in Vietnam, and when during the gun battles. The gunfights. So the corpsman shows up to this wounded Marine that needs help, and I'm right there in the sight line of the gunman that shot him. So I'm just the next target that pops up, and most corpsmen after action reports will tell you that most corpsmen got shot from the nipple line up. They all got shot. They were called headshots, but some of them I looked at were chest shots. But they weren't that good a shot. They had a lot of good. We underestimated the Vietnamese. They'd been fighting for 200 years with the French, and they were dug in well, and they were, better at jungle warfare than we had ever been taught. So but I'm just kind of throwing it out there for whatever discussion you want to lead off of that. But the corpsman, I was unarmed. Literally, when I was issued my .45 pistol, I was issued no magazines and no bullets. I looked at that Marine sergeant. I said a few things I don't want to say on video. What the hell am I going to do with this? Hit him on the head with it? And he said, Doc, I have to issue this self-defense weapon. I said, well, teach me how to use it then, because I have no bullets and I have no magazine. And he says, come on, Doc, I don't have any of that. He says, he says, by the way, if you really need a weapon, 5 minutes after the gun battle starts, you'll have plenty of weapons to pick from because, and it was true, the helicopters would not take any of the weapons with the patients. We had to hump them out. So because there was too many accidental discharges in the helicopters.
I see.
Because we're fully automatic, and you get on that bird, and pretty soon you've shot down the bird, or you killed a pilot, or they've got enough to worry about besides a bunch of damn Marines in the back shooting it up them. So
yeah, we don't need to do that to ourselves. Absolutely.
Friendly fire is not real friendly. You know what I mean? So we had to hump everybody's weapon out. And 5 minutes after we medevac the first 8 or 10 guys out, either bodies or wounded, I had all the weapons I wanted to choose from, and I even carried the M60 machine gun for 4 days to get back into base camp, because
Is that right?
No, it wasn't right, but damn it, the Marines, yeah.
Hey, Doc, you're one of us. Pick up the pig. Let's go.
Let's go. Pick up the straw. Let's go. Yeah. And no question, I humped it out. And actually, I was a bigger target because they want to take out the firepower first, command and control, the medical support, and the firepower. That was their 3 targets. And so a guy with a machine gun, he's history if they can get a clear shot at him. And by taking out the corpsmen or the medics, they could eliminate the morale of the unit and get them more afraid and more frightened. And most of the time, we were in a small skirmish before the big one. In other words, a little booby trap. It was never set up to kill you. It was set up to wound you. Even the initial shots were fired to wound you, not to kill you. Why? Well, they knew other people were going to come to help him. There's more targets. Now, they tried to kill the second and third people, but the first guy, was just a bait, to cut and bait
Sure.
for the future battles. That's jungle warfare,
Well, and you talked about a little bit ago, that was funny. Well, what am I going to do? Hit him over the head with this? And that kind of took me back to, to 2 things that you said in my, or that came to light in my research. And that was, the first one was that if I remember correctly, the grenade, a grenade hit you in the head and then fell to the ground. So so for those of you who have not seen this story, I'll preface it with this. You received the Medal of Honor for your actions that was intended to save the lives of the Marines around you by jumping on a grenade. But that grenade, you said, hit you in the head first. Is that correct?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Here's Paul Harvey's version, okay?
Okay.
I came in contact with 3 grenades during that day. Okay, it was over a time frame. The first grenade was, I went out to get somebody, and I fired him and carried him back in. As I laid him in, I had a bomb crater set up and selected as an evacuation point. And that's where I did my triage and my treatment. If I could move him, to safety. So I either treated him when I got to him, and then I had to get him out of danger. So I took him to our bomb crater. Well, as I laid the Marine on the ground off of my shoulders, I laid him right on a grenade, and it went off, and it blew both of his legs off. Now, he'd already been wounded. So now his wounds are compounded. Now he's got 2 missing legs. So now I've got a new patient. Luckily it blew us both up off the ground. He absorbed all of the shrapnel, and both of us absorbed the blast. So what I'm painting a picture here for you to understand that ultimately this Vietnamese soldier was close enough that he would raise up his cover on his tunnel, and he would throw these grenades, and then he'd drop the cover back down. what we later discovered. Because the second grenade, I was working on him. I started an IV, doing a blood volume expander, and trying, control the hemorrhage. I don't like using tourniquets, but I had no choice in those two legs. Had tourniquets on, and apparently the guy, settled down. The gun firing settled down to where the next thing I knew, I get hit in the helmet with a second grenade. It lands right by me. Now, not being a Marine, I didn't stick it in my pocket as a souvenir. Well, I decided, the good Lord said, you better get rid of this thing, So I grabbed it and quickly threw it out of the bomb crater, and it went off, no big deal. And I had assembled 6 patients there, plus a couple of ambulatory patients, Marines that had been treated, but they were still there protecting. I asked them to stay and protect our patients, So we had about 8 or 9 people there, but 6 were, actual going to have to be carried down sometime, some of them could walk, some of them couldn't. So with the second grenade, that gave me a sense of false security to be able to handle a potato masher like that and be able to get rid of it. I look back now, I've had 50 years to think about how stupid I was. Was this really love, or was it just stupidity that I acted? You know what I mean? Well, you think you do the right thing for the right reason, but there was certainly no reason for me to ignore that threat. So grabbing that grenade and getting rid of it helped me as much as it did the other guys around me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. So, and then one of the Marines behind me witnessed that, and he hollered grenade, and I thought he was talking about, the same grenade. And I'm looking around, like, what? And there's a damn grenade laying behind me. So this was the third grenade now. So I started to grab for it, and it was just a little out of my reach. So I lunged for it, and I knew that I was off balance and I wasn't going to be successful. So I pulled it up underneath my chest. And I thought, well, maybe my body would absorb the blast just like his legs did. His body took all the blast and he lost both legs, but I lived. I thought, well, you think too rapidly. I think I didn't have time to question my own abilities to think through it. But, I look back and I said, that must be what I was thinking, because I jumped on it and I had my flap jacket on, and, it was made swell because it was made by Mattel. That bulletproof vest that, that was paper thin. Well, it worked. I'm telling you, it saved my life once, and I'll tell you that story sometime. But it literally did work for me. But in any case, so I jumped on it, and if you read the citation, it says, it failed to go off, so I calmly rose and continued to treat the Marines. Okay, Paul Harvey being here said, the real truth of the matter is, when you holler grenade, everybody buried their face. They buried their head trying to protect it. And so when the officers came down, I think it was a major or colonel, but I think it was a major that came down to get statement from witnesses. They said, don't tell me what you think, tell me only what you saw. And so the story says, well, I saw him jump on it, and then he got up and started treating everything. Nobody saw me roll over and throw the damn thing out of the bomb crater.
And did it go off at that point?
It went off as it went outside the bomb crater, in midair, actually.
So let me get this straight. 3 grenades.
Yes.
The first one, you're setting this Marine down, and it just happened to be that it was underneath him. Couldn't have known about that. It takes his legs out, knocks you off your feet.
Right.
The second one hits you in the head. You quickly throw it out to make sure that the 2 of you are going to be okay, or the 8 of you. And then a third one is announced. You jump on it. You wait for, as I read it, it seemed like an eternity to you. It didn't go off. Then you get up, you throw it out, it goes off. Did I get all that correct?
That's 100% correct, except I didn't get up. I just rolled up on the guy with no legs, and I just flung it in the air as hard as I could, and it deflected. It did explode, and it went off. But here's what the storyline is. It took several hours to accomplish those 3 events. You know what I mean? And I had different people there at different times, in and out of the hole. The ambulatory guys were moving to try to find where the grenades were coming from. So I readily identified that, looking back, I can see why no one saw, me throw it out. They saw me jump on it, and as I was hollering grenade. Yeah, I can live with that, but no one saw me throw it away. And I don't know, for part of me, I was telling that story, and the guy says, well, you'd probably be better off just leaving that part out. I thought, well, no, that's what really happened. I don't want to think that I jumped on a dud, but I did. It had a slow burning fuse, because they humped them all the way from China. And that's what I always claim to fame, is I had no problem because it was made in China.
I knew you were going there.
It was a Chinese communist grenade, Chi-Com, and this Chinese communist grenade I was able to throw it out, and the good Lord was with me that day, and I told God to get away from us, because I was going to kill him, getting killed, So that's the whole truth. Now, some of the guys that were witnesses didn't see 90% of that. They didn't see the first 2 grenades, because they were brought in at different times, treated, and moved back out, or faced back out, so they could defend us from the bomb crater, from the perimeter, if you will. So, but it don't take, I'm probably one of the only guy that really knows 100% of everything that happened. You know what I'm saying? Because other people, some people were unconscious. Some people were not paying attention. They were burying their heads. So,
I mean, to survive 3 grenade attacks,
yeah,
one right after the other, and this, you said this was over a couple of hours.
Oh yeah, yes, it was. Yeah,
but
and it was during the firefight. Everybody had their own job to do, and mine was, certainly being done by myself. And I was the only corpsman in the unit, so I had to do what I had to do. And the Marines were taught to defend us, so they put up a perimeter defense around our bomb crater. So they were doing what they were taught to do, and so everything worked fine. And my biggest fear, until shortly after the whole event, was that I might have thrown the grenade on my own people, because we were on the side of a hill, on the side of a mountain, and when I threw it, I threw it down the hill, of course, and I didn't want it to roll down on our own people. And then later, as I was medevacing the patients, and I could see the distance, that we were quite a ways away. So the citation's 100% accurate based on people's vision, what they actually saw.
Right.
We were getting ready to load the patients up. We were moving them, getting ready to, we thought the war was over, the battle, we thought the battle was over. So we were getting ready to call in the birds. The bird couldn't land on the side of the mountain. So I had 6 bodyguards that we called litter bearers. And, 2 of them, it took 4 of them to carry a litter. And then myself and I recruit another walking ambulatory guy. Anyway, we tried to move the patients off of that spot and down to landing zone. So the citation says, as we prepared to leave and started to evacuate that position and carry the Marine down to the landing zone, an enemy soldier threw a grenade in on us, and that's 100% accurate.
My goodness.
So, yeah, And luckily he threw a grenade. I don't know if there's any luck involved, but he was throwing grenades instead of shooting at us, because he could have easily shot us, as you know, if he was that close. But
Sure.
I think he was high enough and protected enough from vision that he was just lobbing them in, not knowing if he was hitting anybody or not. You know what I mean? Kind of like
Well,
when you go.
the story is absolutely indicative of brotherly love. You know, especially within the military, you were prepared to take that grenade so that those around you had a chance to get home. And I mean, I think that's, I mean, it's as selfless as it gets. And you know, I want to say, you know, on behalf of Marines around the world, you know, thank you for everything you did for us as well as the United States.
Well, thank you. I feel the love, and I felt the love. You know yourself that Marines love their docs. I started on Liberty. I started many of our fights. They always finished them for me. You know,
I got a great story about a chaplain doing that one time, by the way, but that's for another time.
Story, yeah. Have me on again sometime, because I've got continuous stories. But
So what do you?
Oh, go ahead. I'm out there.
I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you what you're doing these days. I mean, after you got out of the military, how did you continue to serve? Because one of the things that we're trying to do with this series is really what you grew up learning, the importance of, you know, freedom is not free. It's so important to continue to serve. And if you look at those who are in the military, and then there's a couple of websites that actually talk about the percentage of Americans that volunteer for their communities or serve their communities in some capacity, whether it be a volunteer coach, it's 25% of America. That's all that does.
Yeah.
We need to get more people serving their communities.
Well, I 1,000% support that attitude. You know, I made a couple of notes of some organizations. I belong to 33 nonprofits. Most of them are veterans or veteran support activities. You know, there's several good ones. We all talk about the problems, but nobody talks about the solutions.
Yes.
You know, nobody comes up with good, bad, or ugly solutions. You know, good leadership is to do something right or wrong, just get her done, you know, and then, you know, after you fire for effect, you adjust, you know. You stand there waiting for something to happen. It usually does. So you got to be proactive. And I'm appalled that there's only 25% of us that give a damn, you know, about our fellow citizens and our brothers and sisters. You know, I belong to one of the organizations that I want to bring up is the Gold Star Families. You know, we're paying it forward, and we're paying it back, and saying thank you for the Gold Star families that do so much, that gave so much, you know, to help us. No one thanks them for their loss of their loved one, their son, or their daughter, or their father, you know. And so Woody Williams, another Medal of Honor recipient, has started that foundation. He's called it the Gold Star Families Foundation. And we honor Gold Star families, you know. There's always been the Gold Star mothers out there, for years, even during the Second World War. But dads cry too. So, you know, we thought it would be better served if we would acknowledge all the families, the brothers, the dads, you know, we're not taking anything away from Gold Star mothers, because they actually were closer to the kid than the dad was, by their opinions. But, you know, my son's a Marine today, and he's stationed at Camp Pendleton, and I would, you know, I'm afraid that he's going to be sent to the desert and get killed. And, you know, I fear for his life, you know. So the Gold Star Family Memorial, the Liberty Riders, people like to ride motorcycles. Here's a great champion program that they can support, called the Liberty Riders. The Champions of Liberty, another great organization that they can get a pen and pencil or rewind this and go find these people. Vital is Veterans in Defense of Liberty. my God, uh, these are important organizations that people should know about and should be educated from and learn how they can volunteer and help. Um, you know, uh, Too many people are drinking from a well that they didn't have to dig. You know,
Interesting comment.
Yeah, and I think that we got state funerals also. There's a state funeral program out there. Bill McNutt out of Dallas, Texas, down there is trying to get the last Medal of Honor recipient from World War II to be able to lay in state in the Capitol in the Rotunda up there in Washington D.C. There's never been an enlisted person ever honored to that degree. And this is a time when we've got two Medal of Honor guys still alive from World War II. And if Trump and the Congress will pass this bill in support of it, then he'll be able to lay in state just like the damn politicians. And I say that with mixed feelings, but
I understand.
So they're entitled to it, in my opinion, a lot more. Air Power Foundation is a great one. We just had the Memorial Day functions. They're not an organization with any programs. They're a 501c3 facilitator. They pass through. They raise all kinds of money and then give it to other nonprofit organizations. They desperately need help, volunteers, donations. We put on Skyball every year in Dallas with the help of American Airlines, and that's Air Power Foundation. I sit on their board. So I encourage people, the takeaway message is I'm asking them to understand there's a need for them to get involved. And start supporting, either just, support in any way you can. If you don't have a lot of money, most times you don't need a lot of money to do good things,
Yeah, and you're right. It's just a matter of showing up. It's just a matter of making a phone call. And sometimes that level of volunteerism, you're not sure what to do. Well, just make a phone call, go out there, show up to someplace, and before you know it, you're involved. I mean, that's how I got involved in Carry the Load. I knew I wanted to do more. I needed to find a purpose again in life. And it's amazing how much better we feel by helping others. And so, you did mention one other thing that I wanted to jump on, and that was the Gold Star families, and specifically a Gold Star fathers. We actually, on Father's Day this year, is our next Lessons from the Front, and we are going to have a Gold Star father on Father's Day, and Woody Williams, you mentioned him. He is the one that really drove home the importance of remembering the fathers to me by telling a story, and I'm sure he's told you that story as well. So I want to remind everybody out there that that is our next Lessons from the Front, because whether we realize it or not, it's those parents, it's those family members. Maybe they're not having the bullets fired at them. They are still serving on the front line as well.
That's so accurate, because I also want to make a point that I'm sure most veterans share with me, is that we took an oath to defend the Constitution of this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it does not mean that it stops when you take the uniform off. We should all veterans ought to be supporters of all of the organizations we talked about, especially educating the youth. The kids are not being taught in the schools. Nothing patriotic. So it takes a veteran to raise that patriot. As where my statement earlier was, it takes an involved veteran to raise the patriots. And our country is losing our patriots. Every generation, we lose more and more of them because they don't understand the need or the purpose or the benefits. I can tell you, there's no greater love than to walk up to somebody and find out that he's a fellow veteran and that he's done something good for our world, our life, our country. And it's a brotherhood that You don't have to know anybody. You don't have to have any secret handshakes. You don't have to, it's not that kind of organization. It's a brotherhood of love that says, well, thank you for your service. I know you have the same baseline of education that I have, and that is do what we have to do to get the job done, to make mission, and save the lives of your brothers on the right and the left, and let's all get home together, and let's prevent the bad guys from bringing the war to our country. You know, if we're going to fight, let's do it in their country. Let's kill their people. Let's tear up their country, and let's not bring it here. And that's what patriotism is all about, is protecting the Constitution. And there's some people out there that want to do what there's so much hatred in this country today. They want to destroy the Constitution because it's self-serving for them. You know, where in the hell they come from? They only been here 40, 50 years, maybe. Where in the hell they get all their information, you know?
But you know what, Doc? That's why it's up to us. It's up to people like you and me and all the others who have served to bring the love into the equation. And just because, you know, we put on a uniform and fired a weapon doesn't mean we have hate in our heart. It means we have love for each other. And that was the point that you made today that I really took away. And I can't thank you enough for being our guest today. And I would like to say one final thing. On behalf of the United States of America, I want to say welcome home to you as a Vietnam veteran, because we did not do a good job of that. And you are so appreciated. It took us too long to be able to say things like that, but you truly are appreciated for all the things you've done. Thank you, sir.
I really appreciate that. It's good hearing it. And I know it's sincere from you. So
it is.
Sometimes it's just the sheeple talking because, you know, they don't know what else to say, you know, but they don't understand sacrifice and who is paying the price and what sacrifices there are. You know, that's what we're missing, is we don't have respect and appreciation and love for our fellow man.
Well, we just have to persevere and keep teaching them even when they don't want to be taught.
Educate.
So Doc Ballard, thank you very much for joining us and being our guest today. And for all of you out there, again, our next Lessons from the Front is on Father's Day. I have a very special guest. Unfortunately, he lost his son during Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're going to give him his time to talk about that. So I would leave you with two questions out there. Number one, what does it mean to you when we say be the flag? And the other is always have a good answer to this question: who are you carrying?